Welcome to the American Freethinker live call-in podcast, Sundays, 6 p.m. Today's topic, man-made global warming hoax. The phone number to call in, 810-348-5807. Yes, hello. Welcome to the American Freethinker. Now, as usual, we need to make sure everything's working here. I show live. Let's see if I see anybody in here that can comment to let me know that everything's working all right. I got the comment section here. YouTube. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the phone number in. 810-348-5807. That's the call-in number. Let me go ahead and pop that in there real quick. Eventually, I might actually put together a professional podcast where all this is done perfect, but until then, this is what we got. And I don't really all want it to be perfectly professional because, I want it to be comfortable. People call in, have fun. I know there's a slight delay, so let me go ahead, see if anybody happens to be in there. Let me know if the video and audio is good. I actually think I got it completely right this time. Don't really want to get started until I get confirmation that everything, usually the video's okay. It's just the audio doesn't seem to want to hook up every time. Again, this is the American Freethinker. Every Sunday, 6 p.m. Unless I work, and then I'll try to let you know. This is a live call-in podcast. So if you are watching this, and it's not live, you happen to come across it online, let me know.
It's good, I just can't get my comments to pull up to type.
All right, I just got confirmation that everything seems to be working okay. Yes, that was my wife's arm on the video. Let me know that the audio and video is coming through. She's just not able to make comments. So I'm going to go ahead and move on as if everything's working fine. If someone happens to jump in there and I'm getting a bad reverb or the video's a problem, just if you don't mind, just send a comment. Now, this week's topic, and this is actually the first topic that I would say there is more of a possibility of discussion. There are good, somewhat decent points that can be said on the other side. There is a good logical argument. But when you really look into it and you really look at both sides and you put together that critical thinking skills with the logic and the reason, it just makes sense that it's another way, another group, like I've always mentioned, for the Democrats to get votes. It's just another way to get people to dislike the other side and vote. Now, that's one thing. The other thing, and then we're talking world, because this actually is a big world thing, like the Paris Agreement. This is a big money grab. This is the mean, nasty, rich, wealthy America giving money to everybody else is basically what it is. Bringing us down instead of bringing everybody else up. That, I believe, is your socialism. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Still no comments. I show that there are people in there, but no comments. So I don't know what that could be wrong. Last week I started a new, kind of a new way to do things, and I actually liked it quite a bit. There was some comments on Facebook on my live video that I wanted to go ahead and talk about. And so I read the discussion and replied to what was what the comment was, and I enjoyed that. And I'm hoping you guys might have gotten some information from it as well. Obviously, it's not as good as talking. It's not as good as face to face or on the phone and verbal back and forth, but it was still better than nothing. It was better than me just sitting here and just putting my points of view across. Remember, the only way to actually learn is, well, as I talked about last week, is diversity of ideas is how you learn. That's how you hone your skills, your critical thinking skills. Is you put out what you think, they put out what they think. You go back and forth, whether it's super civil or maybe a little heated, as long as it's not too bad. You learn something, even if your point of view comes across as the objective truth, which is what I'm always seeking. I'm always seeking objective truth. I don't care about your truth or my truth. There is an objective truth to just about everything out there, especially when you talk about political or social. There is an objective truth. So this week didn't really have any comments that I saw on there or on the YouTube, so we won't have that. What I'm going to do instead this week, I'm going to go ahead and, because the topic of global warming, and this is man-made, climate change, I got to make sure I get their terminology down right, because it's no longer global cooling. It's not an ice age. It's not global warming anymore. It's climate change. Right, so the topic is man-made climate change hoax, because that's pretty much what it is. Just another power grab. Before I get into that topic, what I'd like to do is kind of just go over the fact that all the other topics that I have, and I may come up with more in the future, are more political, social arguments, or points of view, where this is obviously more scientific and straight political. Okay? So I'm going to go over the topics that I have. And just a quick, short discussion of those topics. Real short. Just my quick point of view, and I'm going to go over it. Because I've done, I think this is my 7th or 8th podcast. And I actually put out 6 or 7 videos prior to getting all the live equipment and putting together a live equipment. And I'll tell you what, doing a video where you can stop it and start it and mess with it and scrap the whole thing and start all over again sure looks better on the end result. Obviously, it's going to look better. Live, it's just you right here, right now. Whatever mistakes, silly things you say, it's all out there. And I think that's why most people just make videos and they don't do it live. But I couldn't do my main purpose. My main purpose isn't just to get my point of view out there. That's the minimum that I want. I want discussion. I want back and forth. I want people calling in would be the best thing, and that's why I got the phone number and everything. But last week I actually started the reading comments. And that's not easy. It's not easy for me to have a topic and start talking and then all of a sudden look down, comment, read on the comment, reply to the comment, back and forth, and then remember where I left off. But I'm okay with that because I enjoyed that last week, the comments. And thank you very much for the people who actually put out comments. That was fantastic. And I do have to keep going back to see if there's still no comments out there. I don't know if there's just a problem with Facebook or nothing on YouTube yet. All right. The topics that I've gone over so far. My first one was America, and then the Democrat Party. Because remember, the whole thing that this is about is why are people still voting Democrat? So obviously, my first topic would be the Democrat Party, and then of course America. Now it wasn't just a history lesson, okay? It was debunking what the left or the Democrat Party puts out there about America. See, America isn't racist. America didn't have slavery. America, that's not the ideology of America. That's not our culture. That's not what America, the idea, is about. Was there slavery? Yes. But it was actually a minority of people at the time that wanted slavery, that actually did slavery and had slavery. The whole concept of actual racism, the actual because of a person's skin color, came about from the Democrat Party, especially when they really were feeling the heat from the rest of the country, even some in the South, that wanted to end slavery. Okay, that's when they really started pushing this idea of white supremacy. Okay, because remember, slavery had been going on for, well, since the beginning of time, basically, that we know of. Slavery for all groups of people. It didn't matter. North Africa had white slaves for like millions of white slaves. It's just throughout history. It is what it is. And so the concept of white supremacy really grew hard. Not that there wasn't throughout time, but really grew hard through the Democrat Party, especially during Reconstruction when they were really pushing that. So when I brought up the topic of America, it wasn't a history, it was the realization that no, it wasn't the America that really had the Civil War, it was the Democrat Party. Basically crying and taking their toys home because they weren't getting their way, and they were realizing that eventually the end of slavery was going to come. And that's why they did it. It was the Democrat Party that did that. It was the Democrat Party that ended Reconstruction when they lost. They were, because they are a radical group, that's why they decided, and they kept fighting down in the South, and that's when the whole KKK came about, really pushing the white supremacy, and they finally ended the Reconstruction period. And then of course Jim Crow laws, right up in Woodrow Wilson, big supporter of the KKK, showed the movie in the White House, I believe. FDR was the one who really turned the Van Buren political machine of the Democrat Party into the Democrat Party nationally. And the whole idea of let's get these little groups, all groups, doesn't matter what group you want to call yourself, if you want to complain about something or just find a leader, if that leader can get some votes, that leader gets to drive around in limousines and jets nowadays. Back then, they just got fancy parties and money, and that the money that the area got from the federal, they just dispersed it amongst all the different leaders. Okay, so that was the first topic, just the generalization and making sure that right from the get-go you understand that it is the American ideology, is American culture, is the idea, the thought of America that I'm referring to, not the lie that the Democrat Party pushes to let all these groups down here that have all their different little issues, to tell them, well, vote for us and we'll make everything better. Okay, so that was the first one. The next one, abortion and welfare. Pretty simple. There really wasn't. There's not, to me, that these are, again, abortion, race relation, feminism, the whole immigration issue, the diversity and multiculturalism. Every single one of these topics I put under a single category, and that is we need to make an argument. We need to make people think that their rights somehow are being violated or taken away in order to get them to hate the other party so they vote for us. That's all the Democrat Party has. Okay? And that's how they've gone through their period of time. Radical, Republican Party kind of stops them. Radical, Republican Party stops them. And this is just another time. Does it seem like it has legs more than it did back in the 30s and 40s when you had the Uncle Joe Stalin, when you had the Hitler on what is it, People or Life magazine, when you had Mao and the Italy, the fascism come on board? Yeah, the Democrat Party latched onto that like they did anything else. When that radical comes, they jump on. They see it as a way to control the populace and get their votes. Abortion, I'm pretty sure that was pretty obvious. If anybody who watched it, obviously anti-abortion nowadays. I don't think there's really any reason for an abortion. Zero, because even in the cases, the horrible cases of rape, where it was very difficult to really try to get a woman to, you still have to keep it as a very difficult argument to push. Well, now you have the blue pill. Blue pill. Oops, that was a Freudian slip. Now you have the morning after pill. I do not take the blue pill. Now you have the morning after pill. So if something does happen, they go to the hospital, they go to the police, they take the morning after pill, no abortion. So to me, there really is no reason to have an abortion. And the 0.0001% of the chance of something else happen, okay, let's deal with that. But from now on, let's finally make this hideous thing called abortion go away, and more women need to start realizing that they were duped, they were duped. They had the party leaders that were true racists, like the Margaret Sanger, that pretty much I think may have even started Planned Parenthood, but she was like just total racism. That's all it was about. White supremacist, big time. That's all she wanted was all minorities. They're the ones that were going to have the abortions most of all, so let's make sure we do that, as well as the population growth people. They're the ones that got that into the heads of women and put it on their platform during first wave feminism. Okay? And somehow it got through. I don't even, to me, it was a confusing time. I don't even understand how you possibly went to a bunch of women who back in the day really didn't even want the right to vote and all that good stuff that happened. There was a small percentage of women that actually wanted that at the time. But they put that on the platform, from being able to vote to being able to murder your innocent unborn child. Wait a second. Let's march for the right to vote. Oh, and medical rights. Okay, good. And let's be able to murder our unborn children. Yeah, that obviously a next step. No, it didn't. It was silly. That was, I can go right into feminism. Pretty much the same thing. It is what it is. It's a political movement. That's all it is. There is no. 2019, women have all the rights you could possibly want, and these are groups that are actually, they don't fight the cultures that actually do bad things to women. Instead, they're fighting a culture like ours that it's all about equality. It's 2019. Women actually make more money than men when all things are equal. More women are in college, more women are graduating from college, more women are getting jobs and making them. Oh, and by the way, our culture is going to hell. I don't want to go any further with that one. And then, of course, immigration. The legal immigrants, and then, of course, illegal immigration. Yeah, they are different. Big difference. Let me see if we have anything going on here. Still don't see any comments, so I'm hoping this is working. It looks like YouTube, you're able to make comments through YouTube, but for some reason unable to make comments through Facebook. Not sure the best. I have no idea what the problem is, because I was able to make a comment out. If there's anybody out there, please let me know. Try to make a comment. Larry, thank you very much. Thumbs up. So it looks like Facebook is good. All right. So I'll just keep going then. So just a couple more things, and then I'll get right into the whole climate change. And I really do wish that people would make comments and ask questions that disagreed. It really is what I'm all about. I really want people that still vote Democrat to tell me why. That's what this whole thing is about. You have a Democrat Party that constantly preaches how horrible America is. In 2019, in 1950 they had an answer, they had a reason. 1960 they had a reason. 70s they had a reason. 2019 you have no reason to think America is this bad, evil, unfair place. There is not systemic racism. There is not systemic misogynism. Nothing. Okay? Are there individual pockets of idiots? Of course. Hello, welcome to the human race. But it's not a systemic issue. Okay? None of these topics, all these topics, you should look at these and realize the Democrat Party is on the wrong side. Abortion, you have a Democrat Party that actually is saying that it's okay, that they will not sign a bill saying that if a child, and what they call a botched abortion, which to me is just childbirth, I guess, but a baby comes out, it actually lives, they can kill it. Well, that kind of destroys this whole idea that it's just a clump of cells inside the woman, when they've exposed themselves to what they truly are, and being able to actually murder it once it's actually born. And you want to vote for that party. I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay, fine. You're not a one issue for abortion. Okay, it's wrong. You don't agree with it. It shouldn't be illegal. But these evil Republicans you still got this this thing in your head for that your daddy told you, or your union bosses told you, or your professor told you, or you actually watched, what's her name, Maddow or something like that, and they just tell you this. In your gut, you just got this feeling that in order to be a good person, you have to be a liberal or Democrat. Okay, all right, fine. You still got that in there. Just go topic by topic. The race issue. Who is the one that's constantly pushing and dividing? Who is the one that wants to divide whites and black people and Asians and Mexican people? And who's the one that wants to divide rich from poor? Who's the one that wants to divide straight from gay? Who's the one that wants to... Who's the one that's pushing... That's just, pulling that division apart? Who's the one that's constantly out there complaining about everything about this stuff? That's putting it in your face and forcing you to think the way they think. It's the Democrat Party. We're the conservatives. Again, I'm not a big Republican Party person, just because I think most of them are just politicians. All right? They don't really have any power and strength in themselves to actually do what's right for the country. They pretty much just try to stop the Democrats from destroying the country, which is good. Better than voting for the Democrat Party. But at least they're stopping it. Okay? So whether it's abortion or the race, and they just keep trying to divide and divide, or the immigration, how can you vote for a party that actually wants to allow open borders? I believe, I didn't watch the debates, but I got here and there different. How do you vote for a party that actually said, yeah, all illegal immigrants should have health care? I believe they all voted, or they all raised their hand. Should they all have health? Yeah. That's the Democrat Party that wants to just allow open borders. Wants to allow our culture to be completely. You even talk about culture, and they put you down as some evil guy. Saul Alinsky tactics all the way. You are an evil person if you even talk about this stuff. That's the Democrat Party. So you want to vote for that? I don't. Okay, fine. You don't like Donald Trump? Fine. But you're voting for a party that's doing all these things that I keep bringing up. Okay. All right. That's my little beginning diatribe. My going off the rails here. Before I actually get into the man-made climate change, yeah, I think climate change is the word now. Weather, yeah, whatever. Still looks good. Live feed looks up. Let's see if. Remember, if you don't want to call in, phone number 810-348-5807. I posted it in the comments. Feel free to comment in the comment section any topic. It doesn't have to be, for instance, this topic. That's why I went over all the stuff that I talked about before. Any topic you want, anywhere from abortion to taxes to the federal budget to socialism, communism, doesn't matter. Anything. Social issues, political. If you want to get it off your chest, call in. By the way, I always make sure you can see my mug. All right. Now, I always have to point this out. I said it from the beginning. This show is not going to be just some perfectly streamlined with a teleprompter and I'm just reading it. This is not the Ben Shapiro show where it's perfect, okay? And I don't want it that way. I do not go out and pull a bunch of information from Google or wherever I get my information. I don't do that, okay? Mine is strictly information comes in, critical thinking skills, logic, reason, and I come up with the objective truth over 25 years of actually caring about political and social issues. So I'm not just going to read you ever just something that I just wrote. What I am trying to do is little points to make sure I'm keeping myself at least in some sort of order so that it's not just chaotic. Again, last week I actually had some comments on there and was able to reply and thoroughly enjoyed that. So if it's something you're thinking you want to get off your chest and you don't really feel like calling in, that's fine. We'll go ahead and do it through the comment section. Okay, let's see. All right, so man-made climate change. Now, I'm pretty sure I remember back in the day as a kid something about ice ages, that we're actually going to have an ice age, that it's cooling. And then all of a sudden, and boy, it was like hardcore. It was like the world's going to come to an end. It was just, we have to do this, we have to do that. I'm sure back then, I didn't start caring about politics until I was 21, I think. But I remember hearing that. And then, of course, as I then started listening and hearing different back and forth on both sides of the issue, that's when I started looking back there and realizing, I remembered. I could have swore there was. Bit by bit, all that information will kind of get lost because they don't want to discuss that. Instead, they'll come up with silly excuses like, oh, well, technology is better now, and that's back then they thought it was the readings, but now technology is better. Somehow the readings that they were doing then that showed this decline in temperature or whatever is just horrible. And I really didn't look up. I'm not sure when they actually came up with the idea of parts per million of CO2 in the air. But I have a funny feeling if they could read it back then, I guarantee you those numbers are changed now. Now they would say, oh, well, it's technology. We can read it better. We know better now. But so then it switched from that to global warming. I'm not sure exactly when that happened, but I have a kind of a distinct memory of Al Gore. Yeah, the guy that invented the internet. I remember Al Gore I don't know if it was, he probably talked about it while he is VP. I don't know. But I know when he lost, all of a sudden, you couldn't get Al Gore into a conversation or a political, or you didn't hear from him other than this big push for global warming. And I remember it distinctly because I remember this idea of carbon footprints. And I remember this big push where if and they were trying to really get it as an actual law, but were companies, and companies fell for it, because they're a power thing. If someone's in power, you gotta kind of do what they say, or else they're gonna completely crush your business, and that's sad. But people like the Al Gores of the world, the Democrat Party, if you don't go by exactly what they want and what they say, they will destroy you. And I distinctly remember Al Gore flying around in his private jets. I remember his mansions. And I remember him, and I remember people just laughing at him about it and starting to question him about it. And then all of a sudden, he started talking about this idea of carbon footprints and how you can offset by purchasing credits because you're buying these credits, and with this money, these people are going out and planting trees. Okay, I don't want to laugh. I distinctly remember, and maybe my time frame is a little off, but it sure seemed to be pretty coincidental that when he started getting made fun, and I think Leonardo DiCaprio was about that time as well. Sorry, DiCaprio. I remember his was big too. He kind of started shutting up about it because he was starting to realize, man, I'm looking pretty stupid here. I'm flying around everywhere, but then Al Gore, and I guarantee you, Al Gore had some stake in all of this money that could come through. Somehow he had some attachment to these groups that got this money and supposedly planting trees. So you bigger your the bigger your footprint was, carbon footprint, the more you were expected to buy, and I don't know what the term was, carbon credits, maybe, and then you would be helping the planet. At that point, you'd be better. You'd be better, okay? Because we plant trees and everything would be great. I remember that. Okay, so now let's fast forward a little bit, because back then he was saying, because he put out his movie, I think it was Inconvenience Truth, I think, and even though every single thing he put in there was proven wrong over and over again, I think even the United Nations, which is they're big into this stuff because it's all about power for them. Even when they came in, they even had to say, nope, stop listening to Al Gore. He's completely, what he's saying is just making this whole thing worse. It just all lies and it's not true, but there still is this horrible thing going on. Okay, I remember that. I think he gave us 12 years, whatever, and I guess that was probably, 20 years ago. Okay, don't know the exact perfect time frame. But then I remember distinctly when that all started getting shot down. Movies were being made about how that's silly. Everything was proven wrong about that. Then they started saying, well, it's climate change. And this whole idea of parts per million, which is the count of how much CO2 is in the air. And I think, if I remember correctly, somewhere, I guess they got this out of ice cores, but Ice Age, it was like below 200 parts per million. And now it's 400, 415 parts per million, thousands of years later. And they're saying that shows that man-made is causing all this. Now, I've tried to look through some studies as I'm listening to it, and I listen to see what people are saying. That when it went from below 200 parts per million, that they know it did back in the ice ages, when did it start going forward? When did this parts per, again, people, this is just rational thinking. Please just logically listen to this. Unless they're saying that this below 200, which was ice age, to now 400 parts per million, unless it stayed below 200 or at 200 from then up until the Industrial Revolution, which is where they say everything went bad, oh evil, evil humans, we actually have machines doing stuff. I'll be honest with you, it sounds cool to actually go back and live in the time where you didn't have all, but I digress. I would like to know what the number was then. Again, I listen but I just don't remember what it was. But I guarantee it was more than less than 200 parts per million. So how did it get from thousands of years ago, I don't know what, like 11,000, 12,000, whatever years ago when they're saying the ice age was, even maybe a little before, right? When it kind of ended. From then till Industrial Revolution, what was the parts per million? And if it was above 200, then logic tells me that something other than man is causing those parts per million to go up. Maybe Mother Nature, maybe normal climate change is doing that. So logic tells me that there's something other than that's pushing it forward, pushing it up, pushing those numbers up. And what they do is they do a straw argument. They really do. I don't know anybody with an ounce of brain cells would argue that man, since the Industrial Revolution, of course, is not contributing in any way, shape, or form to carbon in the air. I don't think anybody says that. It's a straw argument. It's just them saying, "Oh, what are you, stupid? You seriously? Of course man made CO2. Of course man is bringing CO2. Of course, well, yes, they are. Of course we are. We run things that cause CO2. We breathe. Guess what? CO2. Cows fart. We fart. That's CO2. I'm assuming if a cow farts has CO2, I'm assuming. I've never heard that people farting is CO2, but I'm going to assume. Maybe I'm wrong. So yeah, of course, throughout this history, we have contributed some. But they don't tell you what percentage that is. In other words, how much did it grow from ice age below 200 to Industrial Revolution? What was that? I don't know. I'm sure it's out there. If it is, and if it shows it's at 350 or whatever it was back then, they're going to hide it. They're going to ditch that number, because that meant it went up more, and maybe it's going up a little bit faster since humans are. Okay, fine. So you have normal CO2 going up. One thing that they won't tell you is everyone who has a little bit of knowledge of science understands photosynthesis. Okay? They understand that if we were not here, CO2 levels would still be up. It would still be going up, especially with the weather, right? The colder it is, less CO2, especially when everything's frozen over, all the water's frozen over, okay? And then as it heats up, CO2 levels are going to rise with evaporation, water vapor, okay? Which causes like 60% of the amount of CO2 in the air is water vapor. I'm not sure how man-made is causing more water vapor. Maybe that's what I'm missing a little bit. But so you have a natural thing happening where it goes down and up and down and up. And I guarantee you, and I've never seen a chart that actually shows year by year where these levels are, but I guarantee you there's some of this going on. Just like the ice in the South Pole or North Pole or wherever you want to call it, all the Antarctica. I think that's the one place ice is actually growing, but it goes through its normal waves. Okay, right? Winter comes, ooh, ice gets bigger. Summer comes, ooh, a little less ice. Okay, so just think about it, people. And when you try to talk to people about this, and these are people who vote Democrat, so when you start talking to them about something like climate change, when you start bringing up these little facts, these little inconsistencies, like, wait a second, what about this? This is where they go running away. Because if they actually had to think about it, maybe I might actually stop voting Democrat. And for some reason, they just can't seem to do that. Okay, looks like everything's going. Making sure there's no comments here. So, yes, I'm making sure people understand when I stress the difference between man-made, well, they say climate change, but it's man-made adding to CO2 because that's the climate change they're talking about. So if they use the term climate change and it's man-made climate change, that's just stupid, people. Words do matter, and that's straight from Saul Alinsky. They're gonna use fancy, nice, sweet-sounding words like man-made climate change. But if you look at it logically, you're like, wait. Climate change happens if man wasn't here. So to say man-made climate change, man-made global warming, it's just stupid. It's just a dumb argument. Man-made CO2 rise, sure. I agree. We're all on board there. So let's start where we agree. We agree that climate changes naturally even without humans. We agree that CO2 will rise even without humans. Okay? We can agree on both of those. So now is where the difference would go for normal people who don't have ulterior motives like the Democrats or the hard left, which is all about a money grab and a power grab. Okay? They can force companies to pay more money because of this evil global thing happening. That's what they want. If they can kill our economy a little bit, just bring it down a little bit so that we come down instead of everybody else come up to meet us, that's good. Why? I don't know. That's what leftists and socialists do. That's what they want. They don't care about bringing everybody up. They want to bring other people down. I've never understood how that's even how people can actually think about that. I don't know. But anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. So, making sure you understand what I'm saying the difference is at that point where we both agree that man does cause some CO2 rise. What percentage? If most of the scientists that I've listened to, most of the debates, and that's what I do all day while I'm driving, is listening to debates. I refuse to just be in an echo chamber. I listen to debates where they have a professional on one side, professional on the other side that's supposed to know this stuff, and then they debate and they ask each other questions. And more times than not, even the so-called professional on the side of man-made causing all this stuff, they always end up going off into little tangents. They always end up just going off into little talking points. They will state their numbers. The other person will come in and say, well, this number is actually not right. What you're doing is you're forgetting this. So you're forgetting, well, what about the 50 years prior to this? And they just, they're gone. They just go on to the next subject. That's just a fact. Go out, YouTube it. Climate change debates. And there's hundreds out there. All different types of professionals. The best ones are the ones where they've got like 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, and they actually are able to, they each get up and say their thing, and then they debate here and there and ask questions from the audience. That's what I listen to. That's what I like. That's how I learn. And so when I say, let's change the verbiage to man does create some CO2 height, some CO2 rise. Now, what percentage? Most scientists that I've heard, or most of the debates that I've heard, even the ones that are pushing for this stuff like the Paris Agreement, even they say it might be like in the 2% range. Because natural water vapor is like 60% of the CO2 in there. And so then they start throwing around these numbers like the 400 parts per million. And so one thing that one person asked during one of these debates, which I found extremely interesting, and I really think it's a big deal, is what does it need to be parts per million for plant life in a given area or on this earth to exist? Because obviously plants need sun, they need CO2 in order to live, okay, in order to then push out, and that's photosynthesis, okay? They need, I think, what I heard and is like anywhere from 3 to over 500 parts per million is what the plant life needs. And guess what, people? The higher it is, the more they just eat it up. So the one argument that they say is that the warming temperatures will kill people. That's what they say. They say that this warming that's going on will kill people. Well, let me ask you something. If cold areas get a little warmer, what are you now able to do in those cold areas? Yes, plant food. So if the world's warming a little bit, that's going to open up areas to be able to actually plant farms and do stuff like that. If the world gets greener, more vegetation, if more CO2, how is that a bad thing? If the more plants and the more green that's out there, the more they suck in those CO2s that we're putting out there. That's why if you drive down highways, and I've always saw this, it's usually a lot of nice, tall, strong, greeny trees because they suck up all that CO2. Now, can there be too much CO2? Yeah, I'm sure there is. But I've yet to see a stat, a chart, or an argument. I've listened to over 20 probably debates. And I've never heard a person on the pro man made global warming, climate change. I have never heard anyone try to say that in 10 years the parts per million will easily go above 800 or 900 parts per million. I've never heard that. Maybe there are people out there that are saying that. And I'm not sure how they can, because I believe, for instance, the USA, without doing all these, is actually the cleanest. I believe we have actually reduced ours, where other countries that supposedly supported this Paris Agreement actually got worse. I believe the United States is like the best right now. And guess why that is? Innovation. Throughout the years, innovation. Because companies want to run things cleaner and cheaper, naturally. They don't want to have to pollute, because the more they pollute, they know that they're going to get caught and they're going to get fined. They're going to have problems. That's not to say that corporations don't pollute. I'm not saying there are some really bad companies out there that just don't care, because they know whatever fine they're going to get is a drop in the bucket to what they make. I understand that. It's the people who are creating ways of making everything cleaner that are the new billionaires. If they can make coal cleaner, then all these coal companies are going to use their product. Now they're the new billionaires. If they can make natural gas easier to get out of the ground, and they're the ones that through innovation do that, and then once they learn how to do that, they make that cleaner, then they're the next billionaires. And that's what's happened, okay? Just through natural. That's how the United States do it. As long as we keep our free market ideas and not let the Democrat Party use their scare tactics to destroy it. Okay? This topic is difficult to just keep going on and on. I knew it was going to be a little bit of a shorter podcast just because there's really not much back and forth or that I can just point out. I pointed out right from the get-go that they've changed their views throughout time. 50, 60, 70, back in the 70s maybe, when they were first talking about global cooling and the a new ice age coming, they said we had 10 to 12 years. 20 years later, global warming, they say we have 10 to 12 years. 20 years later, they changed it to man-made climate change, and they say we have 10 to 12 years. If you vote for a party and their platform has done that throughout the years, at what point do you say, maybe what they're saying doesn't make sense? Maybe this crazy guy who decided to put some audio and a camera up, and maybe what he's saying here on his own podcast, maybe what he is saying actually is correct. That the Democrat Party is going to do everything in their ability, everything in their power to gain power. The first thing they have to do is get the voters to vote for them. Try to become a one-party nation as much as possible. That's what they're trying. Change it over to socialism so they have all the power. And the only way they can do that is to get people like you, what I believe to be 70 to 80% just normal, good Americans like me, but for some reason, when they were told to vote Democrat by their daddy or union boss or professor or Rachel Maddow, they just decided, I'm just going to believe that, and I'm not going to talk to people anymore about politics. And they're not going to learn anymore about politics. And if you try to talk to them about politics, they might try to peep up a little bit, but they just go right back down as soon as you bring up some facts, because change is not comfortable for people. That's why I started this podcast, to do what little bit I can do. One, yeah, sure, to get things off my chest. Two, I love dialogue, and this is the best way I can think of to try to maybe possibly get dialogue. Last week was great. I had some comments and everything. But this is what I can try to do. And I think we that don't vote for the Democrat Party need to start pushing a little bit before this 2020 election. If you watch those debates, it's scary. The party has gone total radical on us. It's not the JFK Democrat Party anymore. They've gone completely radical on us. And this whole man-made climate change is just another topic that they put people out there to just constantly push down on us and just constantly beat us up over it and make people afraid to speak up. So to end this podcast, don't see no comments, no phone calls, everything's working. So I know it wasn't very long, but the topic of man-made climate change, to me, it's pretty simple, just like the rest of them. And maybe someone will put some comments on that I can talk about it next week. But to round out the podcast, to end it, I just want to point out again the fact that, especially the younger people out there that might listen to this, you need to realize that people are going to tell you things to try to get you to, politicians are going to tell you things to try to get you to vote for them. The easiest way to get you to vote for them, if you don't have good ideas, is to hate the other side or be scared of the other side. So if you vote for Democrat right now, if you know someone who votes Democrat, please forward this. Start thinking about the individual topics like I've been doing. That's why I talk about the individual topics and not about the daily issues. Probably sometimes in the next couple weeks I will start I'm trying to get to the point where I can have daily things where I kind of start talking about the daily issues, but I don't want to get into that because you can hear that anywhere and everywhere. If people actually want to, they can call in and talk to me about the daily stuff. But I think we need to get back to the individual topics, the abortion, the race issue, the all the different groups that have just an absurd loyalty to the Democrat Party. And I said this in my feminist or my XXXY video, where just because you're black or you're Mexican or you're gay or whatever group that the Democrat Party has put you in, remember they put you in the groups, and they make you vote Democrat. If you don't, they just beat you up. Why, if you are any one of these groups, or a union worker, or a woman, why do you have to vote just Democrat because you are that group? That's what they expect you to do. Why can't you think for yourself and realize abortion's bad? The race issues are, there is no systemic race problems, okay? That there are bad people and racists, but what, 5% of the population hates the other people? Whatever it is on every group. Stop voting as a group. Group think is dangerous. Stop being that group. I feel like I'm starting to just kind of wander off here. So I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast. If you're on Facebook, please send a comment. I'll talk about it next week. Share it, especially if you know someone that votes Democrat and they like talking politics. Like it. If you're YouTube, please go ahead and become a member. Escaping my mind right now, but share it. Put it on Facebook. And make sure you hit that notification bell, because if you don't, then if you do, you'll get notified when I start streaming. And eventually I'll start with getting Twitch, and then I'll put that information out as well. So once again, thanks, and I hope to hear from you soon. Give me a call sometime.